Heritage tourism is arguably one of the earliest and yet most lucrative forms of tourism in many parts of the world. In Namibia, it is a new market for development.
Culture was not seen as an important sector for development.
Somewhere else, it's a key economic engine.
I don't think I would wake up from my house and I would just decide to go and visit a museum.
If young people are not interested in their culture, in their heritage, who is going to be left to carry that torch?
The parents' role is very important in promoting culture and heritage.
In this documentary, we present benefits of heritage tourism, investigate the impact of the global COVID-19 crisis, and gather responses at local and national level. Even though Namibia is currently viewed as a wildlife and scenic type tourist destination, its unique culture and heritage constitute an undisputed integral part of the diversity of heritage resources.
When you are traveling with the purpose of experiencing people's past and present, you are interested in people's culture, in their history, and also their natural resources.
This type of tourism, it contributes immensely to the economic development of other destinations. I think it recognizes its link to the local communities. Local cuisines, local food, your craft, your museums, these are all located in close proximity where local habitats are. And I think it's not new type of tourism. It has been it's only that Namibia, we have missed it.
Ushering in new reforms, the Namibian government, through the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, as well as relevant key stakeholders such as the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, the Museums Association of Namibia and the National Heritage Council, are working hand in hand to advance heritage and cultural tourism in the country.
We provide training for people on how to manage heritage sites, how to safeguard intangible cultural heritage, how to do nomination, how to do inventory for elements like festivals and also rituals that need to be protected.
We have a arts and culture policy that was already approved by Cabinet and is soon to be tabled in Parliament. That for me is fundamental because everything has to have an anchor, and this policy will create the legal framework, the basic protection for the promotion of arts and culture. Namibia is one of the countries that also have been part of the executive board of UNESCO, and that is the body that is mandated at the global level to deal with issues of culture. We have two World Heritage sites.
The two protected World Heritage Sites are Tweefontein, which was inscribed into the World Heritage List in 2007, and the Namib Sand Sea, which was inscribed in 2013.
In 2015, we have also registered our first intangible cultural heritage element that was inscribed in UNESCO. That is the Marula Festival, the Oshituthisho Mahongo. At the moment, we are working on two other elements, that is the Nama ancestral music and the Holy Fire or Kuruo, which we are also hoping to advance that. But generally, in terms of what Namibia has done for the sector, I think it's commendable, and the fact that now, as a state, arts and culture is recognized as one of the important contributors to economic development by them being included in the National Development Plan 5, NDP 5.
Namibia was a lucky country when it came to sustainable heritage tourism or cultural tourism because we benefited from the MDGF fund, which was concentrating on the sustainability of cultural heritage. And this fund really funded a lot of projects that has to do with creating cultural trails, and it was supported by, it's a UNESCO project. And then at the moment we are working on a strategy called Sustainable Heritage Tourism for Development and implement creation at community level. Because now we are looking at how, as the community, how can the community benefit from its own heritage?
The strategy envisions a vital heritage tourism scene in Namibia, highlighting the country's rich historical, natural and cultural offerings to bring more visitors. Dr. ERLING KAVITA, a senior lecturer at the Namibia University of Science and Technology, is a specialist in the tourist industry.
We need to rethink tourism. Tourism is not an inclusive sector. I think it has excluded loads of local players, younger players, SMEs, and I think the market is captured, is controlled. The value chain is controlled by a very small market. They might play small, but they have big influences to influence competition, to influence prices, and to own the value chain. By that I mean like you might have companies that have shares in airlines. The same company have shares in accommodation establishments. They might control the airport shuttle. They have their own airport shuttles. They have lodges. They have air chartered. It means when the guest arrives in a destination, they control the guest entirely. And this leaves the guest with limited choices to visit local attractions. This is where the heritage and cultural sector suffers.
The Owela Display Museum in the capital city Windhoek is one of the 136 heritage sites in Namibia. Established in 1958, the museum showcases Namibia's cultural and natural heritage.
We depict the cultural and natural heritage of the various Namibian tribes. We provide quite a holistic experience because we don't just focus on one aspect or on just one culture. We try to bring in most of the Namibian cultures, and then what we do is when we come with exhibitions is that we engage the source communities. We don't just sit behind a desk and decide we are going to depict this particular culture. Say, for instance, the Tswana people. We don't just sit behind a computer and decide, okay, we are going to do our desk research, and then we depict the people in a particular way. We involve the people. We approach the traditional authorities. We ask them how they would like to be depicted. We ask them who they are. So they have a say in what is showcased about them to not just the Namibian public as well, but also the international tourists.
The site is organized into different areas. There's an upstairs cultural exhibit showcasing cultural differences among the various people that are indigenous to Namibia. The downstairs area continues that theme and offers a comparison of clothing styles that have been adopted by various groups in more recent years. The National Museum of Namibia, on the other hand, maintains extensive collections of objects related to Namibian natural history and archaeology. The museum is managed by a young professional.
I work within a museum setting. I am currently a documentalist, and what I do is I photograph and I document cultural objects within a museum. And this has really been an opportunity for me just to discover things that I didn't know existed within my line of heritage or where I come from. I discovered things that were so beautiful that I didn't even know existed before. But in a museum setting, it was more like an education setting for me, like being in a classroom all over again, where I could connect with these cultural objects, even though I've never seen them before.
People need to visit the National Museum of Namibia because here we are serving for everybody, both the young, the old, and the youth. Here we are having different departments which can interest everybody. We are having natural sciences and social sciences, and the natural sciences includes different departments like entomology, where you see the insects, the fish, the snakes, and everything else. And the social science, we are having archaeology, anthropology, and history as a whole.
Though vast strides are being made to ensure that Namibia becomes a competitive heritage tourist destination, inherent obstacles such as lack of effective adequate coordination mechanism and funding remain a hurdle.
If you look at our institutional arrangements, I think the culture sector is a very unfortunate sector. Somewhere else, if you look at destinations like Tanzania, if you look at Morocco, if you look even Kenya, they have a Ministry of Tourism and Culture. These two subsectors are clustered together. In Namibia, culture belongs to the Ministry of Education and Culture, Arts and Culture. I think tourism belongs to the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. And I think the two institutions never had a joint consensus on how to depart, how to commercialize cultural aspects, and how to manage culture. And if you look at our education system that is underfunded, you cannot prioritize culture over education. And it means it's always receiving a passenger attention, not a driver attention. And I think we need to have a conversation at the national level to see where to house culture or to position culture in order to exploit these unexploited economic opportunities that could take youth and women out of poverty, improve livelihood, specifically in the rural areas.
Meet SIMATAA and his brother SIMASIKU.
Now there's nothing, because no one is calling me. It's quiet. Even if I call them, even yesterday I was talking to my brother in Shiama in Swakop. He said him now he start to fry chicken, but the business is not nice for him.
Myself, I'm having a stand in town. If I see that, okay, my business is not moving nice. There are some people who used to call me there in Swakop, Okahanja, Valvis. SIMASIKU make 50, make 60 pieces. Then I rush that site. I get the money, I come back in window. But since this COVID comes,
the duo moved to Windhoek more than a decade ago and have been living off their wood carving business since the early years in 1993.
Early 90s, 92, 94, 95, we used to make a lot of money. You see, sometimes you find today you make 6,000. The other day, sometimes, okay, if the business was not moving nice, you find yourself, you have 4,000 or 3,000 in a day.
The products, he says, can also contribute to wildlife education and tourism attraction.
When they come here as a tourist, in every African country where I go, if there is something which you buy, when you reach there to Europe, you have to, this one, I've been in such a country. If it is in Namibia, or in Zambia, or in Botswana, or in Zimbabwe, or in South Africa, he's going to tell the story. This one is from South Africa. This one is from Namibia. This animal is found in Namibia at such a place. It's where I buy this animal. Because most of these other animals, like in Europe, they are not there. They are normally found here in Africa. So when you go and reach there with that type of art, it's going to show other people. This animal is found in such a place in Africa. So if they are interested, they will come also to come and see where normally this animal is found.
Over the past years, Namibia has seen an increase in the number of visitors at major rock art sites, such as Brandberg. The increase in the number of visitors by September 2020 was projected to be at 1.7 million visitors, contributing 2% of the GDP and consequently creating 123,000 jobs. As it stands, however, because of the COVID-19 crisis, tourist arrival records show otherwise.
COVID, for anything, have taught us a lesson that we need to invest in the promotion of domestic tourism. I think as Namibians, by our very nature, we are used to going to our farms when you have a holiday, or you go to your house and do this and that. But what we fail to realize is the wealth of heritage that you have between the point 1 to point 2 where you are going. So what we are trying to do now, and we are partnering with UNESCO and other institutions to really come up with a strategy that can focus on that, to make sure that we bring that culture to our people, because it is not there, but it is something that we think is a niche that we need to really tap in. And part of what we are doing now with this Heritage Week is to make sure that we go out, we reach out to the communities and to all the different levels of society to promote what we have as Namibia.
There is some sort of a little bit of a lack of understanding of how important heritage and culture is to a country and how it is to the youth. And especially because of globalization, we tend to consume a lot of other people's cultures. So what we have on TV, for example, is majority other people's cultures. What we have on radio is majority other people's music, other people's cultures. And so we want to see a Namibia that has majority Namibian music on the radio stations, that has majority Namibian film and arts, and we are really looking into like how important they are and valuing Namibian arts and valuing Namibian culture.
We do have a rich heritage, but tourists sometimes don't make it to Ongwediva or to Marienta because there's just one museum, or So I want to see that as a country, we really start investing in our heritage tourism, appreciating our heritage, also creating awareness with, at the grassroots level, already creating that awareness that it's our heritage. And then also, of course, I go back to the inclusion of heritage into education. Let's start from the young generation so that at least, they start appreciating the heritage of the country. And then, of course, it will make our tourism, heritage tourism, really thriving.
The National Heritage Council, in its pricing strategy, actually promotes that, promotes local tourism. That we have a differentiated pricing strategy where we charge a reduced amount to local tourists, different age groups, regional tourists, international tourists, and even for learning purposes, we've got a different category that actually enables the learners from schools, from institutions of high learning, also to utilize the heritage resources to their benefit.
In Namibia, we don't have a dedicated undergraduate program that speaks to heritage management. I think there's a postgraduate program at UNAM. So we are now partnering with those institutions to make sure that at least also arts and culture is seen as a profession where we can train young people to become teachers of culture, to become anthropologists and so on, so that the capacity is there. And I think the other important aspect is the generation of cultural statistics. I can talk to you now that is very important. It's an option for development. But if I cannot give you evidence, it's very difficult to convince you. So that's one area that we really want to focus on, to make sure that we have statistics to back up our arguments that really arts and culture does contribute to economic development.
And the unfortunate part that happened in this country also is that how tourism works. Majority of your clients will book a year or two beforehand. And in Namibia, they did that. They booked, they paid in foreign currencies. And those years, 2018, 2017, the US dollar to Nam dollar, it was 1 to 13, 1 to 14, they paid. And because of the confidence that we had as a destination, this is the money that you use to develop and improve your facility. You buy the products and services so that when a guest arrived, at least the facilities and the host surroundings is ready. Now, cancellation happened on force majeure. It was not, they did not cancel because they wanted to. It was a natural cause. And I'm sure legally you have to refund the person. Now you have to refund in 2020. In NAM versus US dollar that stand at 1.16, one US dollars versus is now 16 NAM dollars. It means now you are losing because you are paying kind of with a markup up. And I think these have really collapsed the sector in one way or another. And it has resulted in companies now closing down, auctioning some of it so that they can catch up with this huge bill that it was them using to billing the guest. Now the guest is billing them.
The week leading from the 21st to the 27th of September is said to be Heritage Week in Namibia. Under the leadership of the Museums Association of Namibia, the Namibian Heritage Week provides an opportunity for all Namibians to celebrate their natural and cultural heritage. This year, the theme for Heritage Week is Ombadunjiri Tutumuna, which means building cultural resilience, the new normal in Oshiherero.
It was birthed from Museums Day, International Museum Day. And we realized that what if we got everybody in Namibia for 1 week together to understand heritage, to understand culture and arts and the importance thereof? What effect would that have? And so that Namibian Heritage Week is taking the ownership away from the employees in the sector and the museum professionals and artists and giving it to the general public.
The youth is a subject that is very close to my heart. And I think the problem that we have is that they lack their own voice in the development agenda. And I think unless youth are involved in a demonstration, in chaos, in riots, then when you see youth, but we have to avoid that. We need to identify youth, we need to classify them, we need to mobilize them, we need to capacitate, we need to equip them, and we have to realize that our youth currently is a key national asset that we have. If we are to see sustainable and equitable wealth distribution in this country, is if we engage in youth development.
I believe the parents' role is very important in promoting culture and heritage. For one thing is, they need to tell their children where they come from. They need to tell them more about their history. They need to start singing the songs that their families used to sing in the past. They need to wear the clothes that forms part of their traditions, promoting it to their children. And they need to, every now and again, eat the dishes that forms part of their cultures. And in that way, you can instill that pride in the child, and the child goes, wow, I'm so happy I have these histories. I'm so glad that I can sing a song that my grandfather used to sing, or that my grandmother sang to my mother.
In wider contexts, advocates believe that heritage tourism helps current generations to learn from past successes and mistakes.
2030, we hope that all Namibians will not need us to convince them that the sector is important to development. That in 2030, we have included all young people. They are our ambassadors. They dress, they speak as Namibians, as one nation. Because the idea is that it's good to have diversity, but that diversity need to have a house, a unity. So we have the economic part of it, but there is also the social cohesion. And we hope that in 2030, Namibia will be a peaceful city, but of course reinforced in terms of unity and working together as one, but also that we can live it from our heritage and culture.
Saritara Nakansango Saritara Lavensango Maguro Samasa Mangate Narosa Dinglisi Samasa Mangate Narosa Saritara Lavensango Tarira Dage Tarira